Hey, what's up, everyone? It has been a long time and will likely be a very long time until I do another stream like this, or really many videos at all. Got a number of them queued up and a very, very, very long list of um, of a plan of videos to follow. For the longest time, I was sort of strolling with like all of the promos and posters and things like that. There were so many more to get into and to dive into. In addition to just all of the sort of the getting back to the content itself, the books, the comics, the games. There are so many obscure pieces there, variants, all sorts of random things there that we'll be getting into in future videos. But uh, my wife's about to have her second set of twins, in addition to having an older daughter. So in about a week, I will have 5 kids, ages 5 and under. So I'll be very busy. It's always fun to make some time for this stuff, but you know, this is one reason why there's been a little bit of a lead up, why I've been a little absent, with the major exception of the series that Dylan and I did on the history of expanding universe fandom since 2014, which was a lot of fun to do. And it's definitely something I'd love to do down the road. We'll do like a 2023 edition and so on and so forth. But yeah, there's going to be a bit of a pause. And I just sort of thought, let me just sort of put a stream out there just to sort of explain why that's the case. But I'm looking forward to eventually coming back online. And in the meantime, feel free to get in touch through various ways, through comments and stuff like that. I will be checking in from time to time, but videos will obviously be pretty sort of sparse. And hey, what's up, Alex? A live stream. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I don't know how long this is going to last, but I'm going to. Hey, what's up? I waited a long time for this moment. Me too. I feel like it's been a long time. I've been looking for a chance to do this today. Just happened to be a really good, really good window here. Be fruitful, multiply. Indeed, right, Alex? It's like, and I think I said this in one of our group chats or something, like, look, I mean, like I'm doing my duty to sort of create at least 5 additional potential EU fans out there, right? So I'm going to just drop a link into the chat. So I hope that works. So anyone can jump on if they want. What's up, man? Good to see you. I don't. Thanks for asking. If I did, I don't think I would put that up here. So yeah, it's a good question about Dagu. What's so interesting about some of these lost works, right? And particularly with something like Dagu is the thing is it's not it's out there, right? In the sense that it's not just Bill Ditz who's got a copy of it, but it's the various people in the editorial review process that have it as well to some degree, right? Or at least had it at some point. And that's what's so interesting about some of these things, right? Presumably elements of it were already cataloged in the holocron. Various parts of the Lucasfilm licensee Del Rey editorial process, all these things saw it. There's various bits and pieces, there's versions of it, right? And so I think we'll see it someday. But and it's like with Lightsider. What's been so interesting about the Lightsider release recently is that when Joe Bongiorno made it available, he made a 2008 update of it available. And that's when I think a number of folks were like, well, wait a minute, there's a 97 version, right? You sort of realize there's lots of different sort of versions out there and variants, right? Just again, just because of the back and forth, the iterative sort of editorial review process. Given all the Lucasfilm licensing sort of like stakeholders and stuff, I think lots of people have different bits of it, right? So it's interesting. I think in some way it'll leak, if not by Bill Ditz, through some of these other ways. We'll sort of see. I've seen people say things like, they've assert with a lot of confidence that I think they're sort of bluffing, right? They say things like, well, I know for a fact that sort of the Jedi is sitting on a shelf. And I don't know how they know that or how they can claim to know that, but it's probably true that to the extent that Christy Golden got to work on that, there's bits and pieces of it out there, right? So it's interesting to see. Hopefully people held on to it. So who knows? Yeah, good to see you, man. Oh, here we go.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
It's Alex Wilkins. I like your Well, this takes me back to about 2021. Is this when we last did a stream together?
I think so. Yeah.
Good to see you again. Good to see you. Yeah, I hope I'll be back on YouTube sooner than later, but
yeah, it's understandable.
Yeah, this is probably my last go for a little while, but I'd like to think that Dylan and I supplied many, many hours, more than enough hours than anyone would ever want, for me certainly, of content over the last couple of months.
Yes, the history of the EU fandom, definitely rewatchable. The tide is over until you can come back.
I really hope that more people do that. And one thing that partially inspired me was Son of Luke. I know Son of Luke's channel, right?
Mm-hmm.
He does this cool thing where it's kind of like every month he gives you kind of a rundown, kind of a history of the present. And that was kind of inspiring a long time ago on the expandinguniverse.com. I stopped doing it years ago, but there was like a sort of like EU highlights this week sort of a roundup, right? And I think that was too intensive. Waiting 8 years to do what Dylan and I did was way too much catch up work, right? But I really like his month by month breakdown, so I'd really encourage people to sort of check that out. And you got a lot of great folks here. Thanks, Stevie. Yeah, this is great. I like to rotate the posters here. This is a really cool one, obviously, for Sword Tour. There's a couple of different variants of this. There's another version I have of this that's basically landscape orientation. The same thing. It's just sort of twisted here. So I mentioned at the top, I don't know if you saw this, but many more videos coming with all of these posters and whatnot. Hey, what's up, man? Good to see you. Yeah, pretty early for you. Next time. Very early. It's a very international stream today. Hey, what's up, Only Good Games? And no, to answer your question, no. This is from pretty far back. But I definitely have little promo posters. They're much smaller in scale from all of the last expansions that have been made available, celebrations and other sorts of cons, things like that. Those, I think I've shown a few of those in some videos. But what I thought to do, Alex, since you're here, I thought this might be fun. This will be sort of like my parting sort of, I don't know, how do I put this? Like, it's a way of kind of transitioning sort of, if anyone, this sounds really pretentious, but if anyone's going to miss me, right, we can provide some recommendations. And I've never really done this. And I've always been reluctant a little bit because I don't want to leave people out and hurt their feelings. But there's a really cool long list of people now, particularly like in the last couple of years, that have got channels that are coming up that, need more subscribers, right? More people need to be. Yeah. So we got Noah. Good to see you.
Hello there.
Hello,
Mr. Slav. Nice to see you. I don't
Alex.
think we've been on a stream before.
Hey, how's it going, Chris?
Good to see you. I enjoyed you guys the other night going back and forth about the Filoni Clone Wars and everything like that. So
that was a fun discussion.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate your perspective, Slav, and I kind of wish I had a chance to jump on. And I think you and I are probably. I think if I could summarize that, I think that I maybe underestimate Lucas's involvement. You might slightly overestimate his involvement. Maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle.
It's probably in the middle.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think it really varies depending on like which episode, which point you're talking about, right? I mean, it's not this linear thing where it's like he was only involved this much consistently throughout or something, right? It just depends. And I think that's part of the nuance.
Yeah. Dave actually talked about him behind the scenes that Lucas was more involved at the end of season 1 of TCW than he was at the beginning, writing wise. Yeah. And then it's like, what's he like for other seasons? Dave says by the end of the show, it was mostly him with Lucas giving very minimal notes. But the first 3 seasons, it was mainly him working on it with them. I don't know how much of that's true. It's up in the air. But
yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like, that's more or less TCW. Most of the fandom doesn't like that anyway. So,
wasn't there something about an interview someone on an old stream talked to me about a George Lucas quote? He was working on Red Tails at the time, and he said, "Oh, he only visits the TCW team like once a week and just approves the stuff." So I don't know which season that would be. Season 3?
I have no idea. And then again, like I've had people tell me many things about George Lucas interviews. I've never seen them give me proof of that though. But I always provide sources. What's interesting is when you find interviews with writers that worked on the show, and you talk about, they talk about what they were doing on the show and what was the perspective of that, especially Katie Lucas. That was interesting. I think she was just kind of given free reign to do anything she wanted with the Night Sister stuff and with Quinlan Voss, which is weird. I'd like to do some digging with some writers at some time. But anyway, yeah, sorry, TCW stuff.
Yeah.
It's a can of worms, but it's worth getting into because it's obviously one of those things. It's the thing that, alongside some of the stuff that you've pointed out, I think very insightfully about some of like the stuff towards the end, everything from sort of, issues with the Denningverse right down to the Brian Wood run and stuff like that. There's clearly a lot of cracks in the sort of the seam, right? And it's really over time, and this many years post decanonization, I think the fandom is finally sort of like, there's enough distance, right? We don't have to be super defensive. We can admit that, say, something like the Clone Wars is problematic, right? And, and throws a lot of mud on this like narrative that for years, a lot of fans sort of had post 2014 that like, no, it was this perfect sort of almost like planned in 1976 sort of no, none of that's right. I mean, the Clone Wars is the biggest sort of example of this, right? Hey, what's up, Marcel? But the fact that Katie Lucas, presumably, and you could imagine, whether we have quotes or not, I'm sure she was given more free reign. Who is going to say no on the licensing side to someone whose last name is Lucas, right? Exactly. And I think that's probably a big reason why Chi and whoever else was supposed to sort of hold the guard probably, kind of let a lot of stuff through. And I actually think that's where the perceptions, I think that the confusion around the perception of Lucas's involvement begins all the way in 2008, even before, right? I think as someone like Chi is sort of like looking at this as part of a portfolio of things to sort of log in the holocron, as well as to sort of kind of try and keep track of, the perception that this is Lucas's show is probably what's preventing him from the beginning, right? From sort of putting in a sort of stronger foot down, right? And so I think it's too bad, I think the cracks started to sort of show all the way back then. And I just think they, and then
the strongest thing that people say now, which is a good argument, is it's whatever licensing considered canon, Lucasfilm licensing. And I like that. It's like Lucas's view on the EU. It's like, what did she say? It's like, depending on the day, it's like, he'll say it's his, other days he'll say it's not. It's like, it's just, it doesn't matter. And I like thinking of it as that.
I totally agree with that. And I think that's the healthiest compromise. It's also, yeah, exactly. I completely agree with that. You can think whatever you want. You can think that George Lucas, not only wrote, and oversaw and produced, but even like illustrated the Clone Wars. It kind of doesn't matter. It's ultimately whatever I think down the road, the licensing sort of process would have said about how to make sense of it down the road. Ultimately, Lucas's view about the EU, it either supports us where we can cherry pick quotes, or at worst, it's irrelevant, right? I mean, yeah. But the thing about looking for sources, right, is that exactly. I mean, you can find a quote, you can find 2 quotes by Lucas that contradict, right, every time. I mean, it just depends on the day of the week. He said different things all over the place. So, well, this is quite a group of people here. I'm glad to have found everyone awake.
I was just about to watch a movie. I was excited about it, a spaghetti western, and then it's just like, oh no, Chris Nelson.
Well, Christopher Nelson's more important. I was going to read more Jedi, but I'm like, but it's Chris and he's online, so I'm going to watch that instead.
I was going to work, and yet here I am. So,
Chris, I do have a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know that like supposedly like you don't have Escape from Dagu, but I will say this: what you do know about it, which it may be more than us, what can you tell us about it that like a lot of people don't know, like story wise?
It's great. Ahsoka dies in it, and that's probably why it got shelved. No, I'll be honest with you. I don't know much about it. I wish I could give you more. I really do.
Nope. No editor or anything has said anything about it.
No, I mean, to my knowledge, the only thing we know about it is whatever there's just a couple of minor things we can infer about, its place in the timeline, right? Based on a couple of other sort of like marketing materials and things that sort of reference it, right? And that's where we can sort of infer that it got far enough along, right, to actually be logged in various ways into the holocron, right? So we know big picture about its place in the timeline. And I suppose we know of a couple of tiny little events, right? But beyond that, we don't really know much more. I mean, Noah, maybe you know more, I'm not sure, but I don't know anyone who's actually read it who's been able to give me anything more than what we already know, which again, just at the meta level, is that it's all there. We've talked with Bill Bitts, and he just keeps saying no, right? But again, I wonder, other people must have it, right? I mean, it must be various states of sort of completion in various people's sorts of desks. Because I saw on Twitter recently that one of the Star Wars editors at Del Rey was just going through old files, right? And they've got all that stuff there, you know. It must be sitting either on a hard drive or in a pile of papers on someone's desk. So
That's crazy. Del Rey wants to keep making more like Legends books, and Disney says no.
yeah, and I'm fascinated too by Del Rey's perspective. I mean, I don't know at this point, like, I don't know how it works. You know, it's interesting with like those Essential Legends collections that do it. I don't know how that counts towards their licensing agreement. Presumably, there's a certain number that they can do each year. This is part of the arrangement they make with Lucasfilm, which is one reason why, you know, again, back in the day, Dagu gets swapped out for Yoda Doc Rendezvous because there's only so many a year that they could do, right? And so I'm just fascinated by all that. I mean, what's the reasoning? Why didn't they then put it in the next year or trade it off with something else? Or if they're just reprinting old things now, why not slot a new thing in there that's already done? That, you know, and again, you ask anyone at Lucasfilm, they give you a whole set of reasons that don't really make sense as to why they don't think that would be feasible. But baffling. But I wonder too, I'm curious for anyone here. I've seen this from a number of places increasingly, and I think a lot of it is just how rumors slowly sort of turn into sort of perceived facts. But there's this thing been going around for the last couple of months online, Discord, everything else. People keep saying things like, I know for a fact that sort of the Jedi is sitting on a shelf somewhere. Does anyone have any idea what people think people mean when they say that?
Marcel hasn't.
No clue.
You mean they mean it? You mean they mean it literally, that they know it exists? Because
I think, yeah.
Because my thinking is it probably the first book in some first draft format does exist, because it wasn't, just looking at the timeline, announced in 2012, supposed to come out late 2014. It's reasonable to assume there was something written. But obviously Lucasfilm and Del Rey, the people say, oh no, there wasn't even a story. And according to Dylan is my only source for this. Christy Golden said, oh, it wasn't even going to be a trilogy. It was supposed to be one book.
Right.
Which...
Didn't Christy Golden herself say that she hadn't written any of it or something like that? She disavowed. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We go from the year before it's supposed to be, I think it was the year before it's supposed to be released. I mean, like, the video footage exists of the celebration, right? Where there is the Del Rey Publishing panel that shows the cover image and says, here is the beginning of a trilogy. It's gonna, they say it's going to be badass. That's their quote, right? So they've got the vision, they've got the outline. And just based on what we know about when it was supposed to be published, it surely should have been further along, right? But you're right, Noah. I remember the kind of the revisionism around it. No, actually only being a standalone rather than a trilogy. That started as early as late 2014. Already that revisionism began, right? And I think a lot of it obviously came down to Christy Golding wanting to save some of the ideas she was going to stick into that book for her future Star Wars books, as well as World of Warcraft and everything else. But it's just absurd. I mean, you know, if you know anything about real world publishing timelines, of course there was more there, you know. But again, the trilogy, the standalone thing alone, was enough to sort of raise red flags about, don't believe anything else they say about this, right? But
when was Dagu supposed to come out originally?
2004, I think.
Okay, so it's been around for
5. Yeah.
Sorry. I was going to say that the Essential Chronology by Pablo Hidalgo, right, for the novels.
Yeah.
The Reader's Companion, you mean?
Huh?
The Reader's Companion.
The Reader's Companion. My bad. So the Reader's Companion was that came out in 2013, right?
2012 or 2013. I can't remember when.
I think it was 2012. Yeah.
Is it 20? Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it doesn't include books from 2013. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Never mind then. I was gonna say that since the sale happened in 2012 at the very end of it, right, in December, or was it August?
October.
It was October. Okay. So would that mean that they were making that book after they knew that it sold? But apparently it was 2012, so never mind.
Oh, this leads to something interesting. Chris, I don't know if you've heard about this, but there's this rumor or like fan theory going around regarding the Reader's Companion.
We've talked about this.
We talked about? Okay.
On your server.
Oh, yeah, right. So Chris probably doesn't know it, but apparently Joe Bongiorno talked about it, and he said originally he was going to write it with Abel G. Pena and Rich Handley, I think.
Really?
and it was going to be their project. And then at some point, Pablo took over. And I don't think Joe said like how much he had written, if they had written anything, or if it was just gonna like in the planning stages or anything. But it created like this fan theory. What if the Reader's Companion we currently have is like the first draft from Joe and the other guys in a way, and Pablo did
Oh.
minimal work on it?
I
Because if you
remember-
think about it, it says, oh, it's only including novels and YA novels, but then there's like sometimes little children's books and sometimes comics.
Little
And
comic.
it feels like if Joe and the other guys tried to do like a essential companion for literally every piece of media, not just the books and stuff. Because I can see them do that type of stuff.
The only thing I can contribute to this, and it's fascinating, I want to think about this more. The only thing I can contribute is that a number of years ago, post 2014, Pablo said somewhere, I think on Twitter, that he'd actually, and I think according to him, and this, unless this is all just sort of like a smokescreen, did work on what would effect be a more complete version of it, including the comics, but decided that that would be too much. And that actually, in theory, if that's true, still has all of the research that was going to go into making it also a true reader's companion with the comics. So all I know about this is that he has at least made public statements implying that he did the comics portion of it. But that could still potentially fit with the theory, right? That maybe Abel and others were going to do the book side, he was going to do some comic stuff, and they were going to kind of meet in the middle.
Mm.
And that his stuff got thrown out, but then they put his name on the. So that's interesting. That's interesting. But I don't know where anyone could go to find what I'm describing. I just remember him saying that. Does that ring any bells to you guys? Do you remember seeing that years ago on Twitter or anything? He's been through so many Twitter accounts. It's hard to know like where to even dig this stuff up, you know. And she is gone, by the way. She's gone from Twitter, right? I think so.
Oh, he learned his lesson. He got off that.
He's on
Star Wars
Instagram.
fans asking questions. They're asking the right questions.
He's still on Instagram. You can find him on Instagram.
Yeah, this is funny, right, Dylan? You're right. I mean, he uses that. I mean, it's the ultimate like weird Trump back in our face, supposedly. Meanwhile, and I made a video about this years ago. In 2006 on StarWars.com, he's making a public argument in favor of ending the expanded universe.
Right.
So he was always clear about that. Yeah, I think from his point of view, at the end of the prequel should come an end to the continuity. So I don't know if that means he hates it. I mean, in all fairness, I mean, the most charitable thing we can say about Pablo is that he was someone who knew the EU and loved it so much as a kid, as a fan of like the RPGs and stuff, that he became knowledgeable enough to get a job there and work in fan relations, and then rise to this point where now he's perceived to be the holocron keeper. So I don't know if that means he hates it. He knows a lot about it. He certainly loved it at some point, right? But,
he always incorporates elements of it into new shows too, or he helps do it. So he says.
Yeah. Although it's so funny that it's funny we talk about the perception or misperception of Lucas's involvement in the Clone Wars. I think the funny perception that the public has about his role at Star Wars, I think, is also vastly misunderstood. I mean, again, people seem to think of him the way people thought Chi was supposed to act pre-2014. It's not entirely clear to me what Pablo does. And that's not me knocking on Pablo or knocking on Disney. I just don't know anymore. Everyone seems to think he's the guy that sits there and approves every line of every Star Wars project. I just don't know. I don't know if anyone knows anymore the inner workings of the story group.
Because it like when it comes to, you see all those notes on what they were going to do for High Republic, years ago, and apparently that's the story group. And you're sitting there going like, okay, how much sway do you have? Do you mostly have sway on like publishing? Do you have it mostly on, is that just it? And then like with TV shows, you help out? I don't know.
Well, he said recently that the story group's really only there in like an advisory capacity to help out creatives, right? They're not there to dictate what the terms are or say like, this is the continuity, you must adhere to it. And also recently on Twitter, and Slav, you were involved in this thread. You were asking him questions and he was answering some of them, but he was addressing some theories that once Kathleen Kennedy goes, if that's true, that the story group is also going to be gone or at least reconstituted. And he basically said that was false or that he had no information about that.
I don't know if I believe that because new leadership gets to decide who gets to stay and who gets to go. So,
right.
Although I don't think they'll get rid of Pablo since he's been there since the 90s or something. Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
I still think it's worth getting. I mean, yeah, it's a good and you can nitpick parts of it, but it's still a helpful resource, I think. And but in terms of whether or not he's a traitor, I don't know. I mean, but I don't expect any loyalty from any of these folks. They don't know who I am. Well, I mean, he might, but I mean, he certainly slapped back at me a number of times on social media over the years. But I mean, I feel like, but what's interesting again about this perception of whatever it is he or anyone in Story Group does is, sorry to sound like a broken record, I've only got a couple of tricks up my sleeve, but one of my favorite is that, it's in the Wikipedia article about a book called Star Wars Graphics, a 2016 legends-oriented reference book, right? That people asked him about on Twitter that he said, I don't know anything about, right? So Pablo is finding out about published works, including unique ones like that, post-2014 related to the EU, that he claims not to have any knowledge of, right? So it turns out not a lot of things cross his desk, and this is incredibly relevant to the impending release of Supernatural Encounters, right? Given all like the controversy about its canonicity and stuff, and Pablo now claiming, I don't know, I didn't see that, blah, blah, blah. Well, it turns out it's not maybe his job to look everything over anyway, but so who knows what those guys do every day. There's always this kind of two-step they always used to do, right? About like, oh, well, like Lucas doesn't have to regard it, blah, 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 right? But again, to the thing we talked about earlier, who cares what Lucas thinks about it, right? Clearly Lucasfilm licensing was engaged in a longer-term project to keep it all coherent, right? So a thing they always have to add at the beginning of these introductions to things. I think, again, it's a good resource. I mean, all of the essential companions, and it effectively is an essential companion, right? All of those are really great resources. The best chronology is still Noah's, right? It's still available on Amazon. That's right. There you go.
We can officially say I'm a better author than Pablo. I mean, I would
easily
put this over the Reader's Companion.
Did Pablo write a Jedi Prince fan fiction? No. Points deducted.
This
Hey,
is
Noah.
the best part of it right there.
What a genius. That's an actual quote, right?
Chris Nelson quote on it.
An actual quote, yeah.
Noah, that's everything in the timeline?
No, it's just post Return of the Jedi, but it's still very thorough.
Yeah, it's over 400 pages, and it's just after Return of the Jedi. I'm working on the rest, and it's kind of a nightmare.
Oh, I can imagine Clone Wars era is a nightmare.
Yeah, I'm on the Old Republic era. I'm trying to wrap my head around SWTOR.
Oh yeah. Well, Marcel helped a ton with the Reader's Companion though. So him and who else? It was Greyholm helped with that.
Yeah.
You mean the chronology? I had no involvement in the Reader's Companion.
No, not the Reader's Companion. No, I meant Noah's chronology.
But that's also a problem. I write my text in German, and then Marcel, he doesn't want to edit it right now because it's not translated into English. So we are stuck at the moment.
We're trying to figure out a way to get it translated, the current stuff that he's writing, so that we can.
Google Translate's horrible. Don't do it. I did that with his Jedi Prince fan fiction to help out with like giving my opinions. That would take something that would take maybe 15 minutes to read took like an hour because I had to do it slowly through that. And it still wasn't right, so it was really annoying.
But that's all cleaned up now.
Yeah, about the Jedi Prince though.
The Jedi Prince stuff, the translator of the Hungarian Han Solo books was such a fan, he custom printed my trilogy for his shelf, which
that's awesome.
And I'm re-editing the English version of the Jedi Prince now just to catch like those little grammatical or punctuation mistakes, and then a custom version will be available for people to make.
I'll get it.
Well, we were on Pablo for a bit in TCW, but since this was originally like Christopher Nelson's finale before he goes away for a while, I just wanted to say thank you for being you.
Yes.
And I really want to say, like, I know that you're just a guy that wanted to like talk about the EU, and so you started doing that online. But to like most of us that are the up and comers and making YouTube content for fun, whether that be Noah or me or Marcel or anybody who does it, we all really have to thank you and Matt, because we all watched you guys and then we started making our own stuff. So you were the first, and we love you. And I just want to say that.
Alex, all I have to say to that is you are a genius, a literary scholar. Thank you for that. Thank you. That's really sweet. But hey, enough about me. Let's talk about Pablo some more. I think that there were two interesting things that popped up. This is not for me to say because I didn't have a relationship with Pablo pre-2014, but But for those who did, and I'm sure folks have heard this anecdotally too, everything I heard is that basically some of the folks who kind of had that, were on that insider track, even EU contributors, right, who had a very sort of positive, jovial relationship, friendly relationship with him, all of a sudden sort of seemed to sort of sense kind of like a sea change in his personality, and amongst a lot of folks at Lucasfilm, right? And he started kind of icing them out. And again, it's not for me to sort of say more people can back that up who actually had experience, but it's really weird to see. It was really weird to see the power that discontinuation, decanonization had, not just for us, the fans, but for even the folks who were involved in continuing to sort of prop up Star Wars pre-2014. It's a real shame. But someone mentioned something in here, and I just thought it was worth pointing out and speculating about, right? So here's what's interesting, right? I mean, again, the book technically, well, whether it comes out within a couple of weeks surrounding the actual cell. I mean, obviously the cell was in place for a while, right? That paperwork, the structure of that, of the Lucasfilm buyouts getting put together for probably a while. But what's really interesting about this, in any event, about it coming out when it did, considering that the EU was continuing to go at that point, is it was a weird move by Del Rey, right? I mean, why commission that? You guys ever speculated about that? I mean, what was it about them wanting to do that then? I mean, do you think they were going to then come down the road with like a follow-up at some point, a supplement? You know, it's a bold choice to make for something like this, a living, breathing timeline. Star Trek did this years ago, where they put out a book that basically it's a compendium to all the other books, but now it's already it gets out of date immediately, right? Was there a sense that the end of 2012 was going to be sort of the end of something, right? I mean, what was in the works behind the scenes that we weren't aware of at the time? I don't know if anyone saw that and thought, oh, is this the end? I just thought, okay, I guess this is part one, and we'll get sort of like a future edition, in the way that all the other essential companions had been sort of updated over time.
Pablo, during that Twitter thread, I don't know if you saw it, Marcel probably did.
Yeah.
He said that 2012 was dire. He didn't elaborate on that aspect more, but what I took that as is that he meant sales were dire. Yeah. And that's why things at that point were shifting more to an original trilogy focus. Apparently Clone Wars wasn't making as much sales off the merch anymore, since maybe kids grew up. So that's why you had like Razor's Edge, Honor Among Thieves, Heir to the Jedi, and Tarkin coming out. It was being commissioned.
And Noah, you talked about 2011 being kind of like a soft reboot as well, right?
2013 to 2014 is definitely the reboot era, the secret reboot, as I call it. Because I have the feeling with the Empire and Rebellion trilogy and the Brian Wood stuff, that it's very much Del Rey and Dark Horse going, we know we're going to get rebooted. Like there's something going to happen now that Disney owns Star Wars. So let's make this stuff, it's inoffensive enough, like it doesn't have much impact. And maybe when the canon is reset, they will keep this. So that's my idea of why that stuff came out.
It's totally plausible. It's totally plausible. And it's interesting too, and this doesn't get talked about enough, right? I mean, particularly even among Filoni haters, is that even his show got canceled. And evidently without his knowledge, which is why we have all these extra episodes, some of which end up as like, full canon stories, right? So like Dark Disciple and everything. So something's going on. I mean, I do think the thing with Dark Horses, I mean, we know just from public statements, we know a little bit more about it. I mean, it just seemed like it was a big editorial play by Dark Horse editorial. I mean, I just think it was just a tactic. I don't know if it was about long-term thinking or more just about sort of like quick cash or something, right? Because who's not going to buy a #1 Star Wars issue, that sort of a thing, right? And it worked for a while, but immediately they walked back the public messaging about it being a soft reboot. They didn't refer to that anymore, right? But everything you said, I think is totally plausible. Grey Home, we've never been on stream before. It's good to finally get to talk to you. You look a lot like Leland Chi.
I am honored to be on the stream.
All the way from
is my
Singapore?
audio working? I'm just talking
Yep.
really softly. Great.
Fantastic.
I haven't made a StreamYard account, and then when I went on someone's stream a long time ago, I put this as my avatar, and I haven't changed it.
That's
Because
great. Indiana
they don't
Jones
let you
legendary.
upload a second. But I don't mind.
This is amazing. I think, Slav, are you in North America?
Yes, sir, I am.
Are you in the United States? I'm just trying to figure out the international relationship here. We're kind of like 50-50 here. This is amazing.
Yes.
This is fantastic.
So
Marsh-
Noah, it's night for you now, right?
Yeah, evening, not quite night.
Yeah, okay, it's 2 a.m. now.
You guys are
Marcel's
dedicated.
my brother from up north.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Beyond the wall.
Mm-hmm. I like that hat.
Thanks. It's one of my only 3.
Well, Pablo.
The other thing about Pablo is that he had made some comments in the past about supernatural encounters, but Slog, he was answering questions of yours when you asked him specifically about supernatural
And
encounters.
he ducked
Right.
that question, bro.
Totally ignored it.
He ducked that.
For the best. Probably for the best, in my opinion.
Yeah, and here's the thing. It's not. I want to actually ask Joe this personally to see if Pablo has talked to him about it. He's probably going to say no, but I wonder if Pablo secretly is one of those backers, and he secretly kind of wants it. Because I'm like with Chris. I
That'd be
don't
really
think he
funny.
hates it.
We're going to see his
I don't
name.
think he
Trivia
hates
comments. Pablo Hidalgo.
Imagine
Yeah.
if Pablo has just been a double agent the whole time. That would be a really big twist.
He's playing the long game, trying to get the
Yeah.
easy back for us.
Yeah.
Guys, I was
Clearly,
doing it the whole
clearly.
time, guys. It was me.
It's not the. How's the quote go? It's not the hero we want, it's the hero we need.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, Pablo is Batman. My mind just got blown.
He puts out these really weird tweets, disavowing his tweets too. Like, don't believe anything I say. Everything's a lie.
He has
He deleted that tweet. He actually
it was-
deleted it.
Wait. Everything he tells us is a lie.
That's
Pablo is Virginia
Yes.
confirmed.
He's a chicken man.
I think he
yeah.
says that to keep like. I think the what is it? Management off his ass. I think he does that on purpose.
Well, even
He
like the other
actually
night,
deleted that tweet. I have a screenshot. Let me find it and just say the exact words.
Yeah, and then,
Um,
what did he say? The
It
other
goes, please don't believe anything I tweet, ever, in brackets.
That's words to live by.
And then he deleted it. It was a tweet from 13th June 2017.
He likes to paint himself as like somebody who doesn't have a lot of say in Lucasfilm even to this day. But like here you are going on a panel with like Dave Filoni, before
I
Clone Wars got
somehow
back.
doubt that he doesn't have much say.
Yeah, it's like that's what I'm thinking too. It's like how much power do you really have? How much love for the EU do you really have? Because I don't think you hate it. I'm like with Chris on that.
the
So
other
it's just
interesting-
strange.
The other interesting thing that came up about Pablo in the last few months was him and Jason Fry were tweeting about how when there was their decanonization, they were advocating for a shorter timeline, like 5 years, as opposed to 25,000 years. And apparently, I guess someone at Lucasfilm vetoed that. But anyways,
But
it was just interesting to hear
isn't that still kind of a thing now? Because
Yeah.
they have shrunken down the timeline somewhat with like how long has the hyperdrive been around and stuff.
Right.
Like the Old Republic as we know it can't even exist in the Disney canon. And I know that because many casual fans are confused by that. They don't realize,
yeah.
no, we can't have the Revan story or anything. At least not.
I
That way.
remember
Not in the same
reading a lot
way.
of people talking on Reddit about, the KOTOR remake's gonna be canon. I love it. But of course, it's impossible because the High Republic exists.
Yeah.
And they
Unless
shoved
they
in a lot
changed-
of low contradictions.
Unless they changed a whole bunch, in which case it wouldn't be a remake, or it wouldn't be it would be basically a different story if they had to change all that stuff.
I don't
hired
think that
writers
they'd
for it.
bother to change it, even if they wanted to make it canon. I remember Chi said it would definitely remain in Legends
Yeah, I remember
on
that.
Twitter, but we don't know because now the whole thing's gone into development hell.
Well, here we
Which
are.
I'm okay with.
9 years post decanonization almost, and they haven't at all touched anything in the Old Republic in the Disney timeline, which I find interesting. They've talked. I mean, obviously there's the High Republic stuff, but I mean the Old Republic, like thousands of years. They haven't.
I
touched
mean,
it.
the most they do is some name drops, like Revan in the Rise of
Like
Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker, yeah.
Dictionary thing. We know they won't touch the Sunrider name because
Oh yeah,
that has
the
always been
lawsuit.
confusing.
That's still around.
So I find that interesting. I don't know.
I wonder, just on the tangent about the Sunrider lawsuit, I wonder what it is.
Yeah, that's a strange.
It's a
Chris,
very
you may know
strange
something.
lawsuit
Yeah,
because
because
they
have never
use it
told
in
us
Tales of the
anything.
Jedi. Exactly. So they used it in Tales of the Jedi, and then whichever company owns the name went after them.
Yeah.
But then in
But then the thing
KOTOR,
is-
they accidentally wrote in Sunrider, and then I
Yes,
think
but that's the
Jolie has
confuse-
one line.
That's
Yeah.
the confusing thing. So the name was in the comics. Then apparently there was the lawsuit, and they had to change the game because obviously
And then,
Bastilla Shan
yeah,
was
they
supposed
just
to be.
forgot to remove one mention, and then
Yeah.
in KOTOR 2,
But
there
then-
was zero.
Yeah, but
Flat
then they
zero.
said, okay, we're not going to use the name Sunrider anymore. But then in 2012, there was supposed to be the Mandorla. novel.
Mandola, exactly.
And that
And,
just makes it even more confusing. What is the exact... Like, if they just told us, oh, we can't use the name, specifically, we can't use it in video games. Because even in SWOTOR, Nomi Sunrider is called Nomi Daboda. Because I guess she just got back to her
she's called
maiden
that in
name.
SWOTOR.
Maybe
Yep,
Chris
yep.
check this manuscript of Mandorla and let us know whether or not they
Yeah.
Dakota or Sunrider.
He has all the secret knowledge.
You never know. By the way, the story with Sunrise, wasn't it like a car company or something?
It was Jeep.
That's a fan theory.
It was Jeep, right?
One theory is that it's Jeep. One theory. I think it was Jeep.
Yeah.
By the way, it is interesting to speculate about what else we might get, you know. And Lightsider was a biggie. That was a biggie, right?
It was.
That
That was a really big one.
a completed thing, right? Which again is why I think Dagu is such a meaty target, because it's another complete thing, right? I think a lot of other things we're going to get are going to be scraps and stuff, right? I mean, I heard a rumor when the Heart of the Jedi sort of popped back up again in 2021 and everyone's radar. It sort of sent people sort of searching back through their archives. The rumor I heard at the time, and I haven't followed up with some of the people who were in touch with people who knew this to sort of see if anything came of this, but the rumor I heard was that there was a prequel comic that was in the works that may exist in some form in a couple of scraps. But again, we're not going to be getting the full treatment or even the full completed project. No, if you heard something to that effect.
Yes, because as far as I know from my little research, Heart of the Jedi was supposed to be like the middle part of a trilogy. And I use the term loosely because I think the book we have is very much the story itself, maybe like
because Margaret Weiss was going to be the follow-up, right?
Yeah, Legacy of Doom was supposed to be a novel, and then Exiles of the Force was a comic prequel, so to speak. But I don't think there have been any details on how they would have connected, because the Heart of the Jedi novel we have is very much standalone, I would say.
Yeah.
So,
and the rumor I heard is that the family of the comic creator thought that it was all gone, all lost, but the last I heard, they have something of it. That's the last I heard about it.
Could it be the comic script, maybe?
Or maybe.
I heard that it was even potentially, and I don't want to like start perpetuating rumors, so just take this with a grain of salt. Pretend I'm Pablo for a second. Don't believe anything I say. But it might have even been that there was even some sketches or something, right, of a part of it. So who knows? We lost our Singaporean. Oh well.
So Chris Nelson confirms that we have the script for the prequel to Heart of the Jedi, y'all. You heard it here first.
And it's right here on my desk. Yeah, but you know, but Alex, we were talking about this on email the other day. I mean, it's interesting, some of the stuff, some of the canceled stuff. I mean, I'm always saddened to get closure about things that we know for good are gone, but it's good to know so that we can kind of focus energies elsewhere. I've heard some people talk about this recently, and just so everyone is totally clear, the Nightfall trilogy is never going to be seen. It's gone. It's completely gone. Whatever there was of it, and I think there was something like a sketch of the first and the outline of the rest. It's completely gone, along with like the Legacy of Doom novel. So these things we can just scratch off our list. Like it's not even worth joking about anymore. It's gone. You know. So, but Mandorla, there's hope, right? The Sword of the Jedi, however far she got, there's hope. Obviously, there's hope for Dagu and a lot of these other things. But it's going to be interesting. I don't know what the next big thing's going to be, but there's definitely more bits and pieces out there. There's no.
I have a question,
No doubt.
Chris. How would you feel, let's say, if somehow we do get a copy of her manuscript that is incomplete, as in like it literally stops mid-sentence on chapter 8? Like what would you think about that, considering it's an unfinished story?
You mean just from the perspective of how to integrate it? I'd be great with it. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I think probably because, I mean, if we found something pre 2014 that was like this, I wouldn't know what to do with it, right? I'd want to sort of put it back into official channels to sort of give it the stamp of approval and everything else, right? So I think we're at the point now where this many years on, and I sort of hinted at this in my sort of last video about the history of the fandom, when we get into sort of like fan fiction questions, I think I'm of the view that it's a little too early to sort of start sort of like qualifying anything anyone's writing, including the wonderful Jedi Prince follow-up by Noah here.
It's real in my heart.
But I think we're not that far from the point where even someone like me is willing to say we're denying ourselves good Star Wars storytelling if we just keep that stuff away, right? So, but again, something like a partial treatment of a partially completed book by Christie Golden, particularly something like that had been part of like a pre-2014 commission plan, I think I would take it in and see how to make sense of it in the context of everything else we knew about, where we thought the continuity was going. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But because like it'd be disappointing we wouldn't have the whole story, so it's just you could only like speculate to what the ending would be.
That's true.
But I mean, as long as I guess for somebody who's a lot more older in the fandom than me, having just that much would still be a whole lot. That'd still be a really big Christmas gift. So yeah, I understand.
No, I get exactly. At this point, and this is why I'm still holding out hope for getting one scrap of like the prequel comic to Heart of the Jedi, right? Like at this point, no, I think it's about the quest for the like the little bits of stuff that were scribbled on the back of the napkin, like a Skywalker Ranch retreat or something. So I'm all about that, right? And there's already examples of this, right? Slav, like, I mean, I was really excited years ago when they put the like the production reels together from like the uncompleted Clone Wars series and things, the canceled series, right? And even the scraps and stuff, right? I want to know all of that. So yeah. So that might surprise people because I think people perceive me to be one of the legion of Clone Wars haters, and I'm not a huge fan of it for a variety of reasons I could get into. But even that excited me, right? In fact, I'll show you one of my recent promo poster acquisitions. I'll be right back.
You know what? Talking about how we are looking for like lost treasures with like the old, like lost EU stuff. The Indiana Chi picture is just so perfect.
Yeah, it is. It is so perfect.
Hey,
there we go. So, 27 by 40 inch promo poster of the Lost Missions DVD. So yeah, there you go.
It's when they got a different character model for Yoda. They slicked his hair back.
Yeah,
right. He looks kind of like the Hulk's kid in. I never noticed that the haircut.
He has like a six-pack on his head.
I should have to think about that.
Bro, his head is like in better shape than me.
Yeah.
it looks like the top of a tortoise.
Yep.
A little bit.
Yeah, it looks like a Klingon or something. It looks like
We don't talk about how that happened.
The Waffle House.
The DS9 episode.
But back to Lost EU for a second. I heard a lot of very strange, conflicting stuff about Nightfall in particular.
Ooh.
Because I talked to, I asked Joe Bongiorno, who told me that Friedman just said no, and that was it. While Cezine, who normally comes up with all sorts of interviews and secret behind-the-scenes stuff, said that Friedman had it, and it was a Dagu situation of all things. And yet another person said he actually contacted Friedman in 2020, who said, I've got an old floppy disk somewhere in my basement, but it takes more time and effort to find it than I'm willing to give. But he also forgot most of what happened in it. And that was it. So
I've heard that's interesting, and I've heard and see that's it gives me just a little too much hope. I'd like to be optimistic about this, but I that tracks a little bit with something I heard, which is what I think it was the case that, I mean, what I heard is that it wasn't on a floppy, it was on a hard drive or something, but the computer was lost. But that, to your point, that he didn't remember what it, he didn't remember it anyway, right? After all these years, he frankly didn't really remember even a lot of the main beats of the outline, which again is something I would take. And Slava, your point, I mean, I've said this for a while now. If you want to be really realistic about what a continuation of the EU would look like, we have a lot of fancy ideas. You know, a lot of people throw out everything from like new TV shows, movies, blah, blah, blah. Here's all I want at this point. I don't even want narrative. I just want some of the pre-2014 authors who we all look to sort of want to continue to just give us an outline of where they would broadly want, where they would have taken the story. That's it. Just tell us. And by the way, that's why I always think it's a huge missed opportunity with those Essential Legends collections not to have Karpyshyn put in a paragraph about where he thought this might go. Right? What does it cost them at this point? So I don't even need I don't need fully fleshed out editorial products. I just want a couple of ideas. It could be blog posts. I mean, that's it. You know, just lay out the vision. You know.
And I gotta say, if like authors come forward with like, oh, this was gonna be what's happening. If Troy Denning comes out and he says like, oh, this was the basic story idea we had for this trilogy after Crucible, it's gonna end up in here. Like I would do it.
It's very big of you, Noah.
Yeah.
I mean, if he gives us like legit information of like what was planned, because I watched an interview with Troy on YouTube where he did say he stumbled into the room when like the higher ups were talking where they are taking the story and the books, and he was like, oh my god, this is so exciting, are we really doing this? And how he was hoping Disney would allow it, and then obviously not. So he knows. And that's ironic for me. Our last hope kind of is Troy Denning, because Aaron Alston is dead and Christy Golden will not play along.
Well, speaking of a continuation, Greyholm, didn't you bring up yesterday how Kevin J. Anderson has some kind of Kickstarter? And
right, you shared that.
So someone on Joe's server told me that Kevin J. Anderson now has a Kickstarter for his new book, and the top tier costs $5,000, but he will write a short story of whatever genre you like. Print it out in hardback, sign it, send it to you, and delete the file from his computer. No one else will read it. No one else will know you have it.
Unless you do an audiobook of it on the internet for everyone to hear.
But you will be the only one who owns a hardcover copy of it.
Yes.
Your very own Kevin J. Anderson story.
All of us pitch in 5,000, we can get a full story.
I was about to say, yo, Chris, I'll put up your
that's the next Twin Sons project. We get Kevin, we pay 5,000, and he's gonna write the final Nomi and Vima Sunrider story.
That's right.
Exactly.
I'd actually be down for that.
Either that or maybe another Young Jedi Knights thing.
Or a Kip Durran short story.
No, that's Matt Wilkins' thing.
Actually, we'll take anything. We'll take anything.
Oh, that's amazing. Something tells me too that like Matthew Stover has zero love left for Lucasfilm, and that he would. I don't think you would take 5,000. I think you could give him 5 pesos. I think he would write is anything to sort of continue, right?
Have
you seen him in recent videos? I mean, he's just
I watched all 3 of the interviews he gave during COVID, or maybe there was 4. I watched all of them, and there was some really interesting stuff behind the scenes with Shadowpoint and Revenge of the Sith. But most interestingly, in the completely wasted interview Star Wars Theory did with Stover, Star Wars Theory is like, so I'm doing this Vader fan film, and I'd like to hire you to write on it. Could we talk about this offline? And then Stover just goes, yeah, sure, I'm interested.
There you go.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is I have to get in contact with him, and then
basically you can contact Stover, and he says as long as he gets paid, he'll write anything you want.
Chris, you're the guy. You got the contacts, man. You can do it.
I think James Luceno. Well, okay, Luceno probably is the least press out of like every author. No one knows anything about him really, beyond his background. But I don't think Luceno's very happy with Lucasfilm either.
No,
because
and
he was after talking, he went on an interview and was like, "Yeah, I'm planning this Palpatine novel, but it probably won't fit with the continuity, and I don't think that they're gonna hire me to write it." Lo and behold, we still don't have it. He hasn't written anything since Catalyst.
He is not happy, and we have a mutual friend, and I know for a fact that he's not happy about anything. Obviously he's in that unique position of having written a couple in the new canon, right? But again, only early on. It's got that weird transition. But no, he is not. He is not happy. He actually was involved in a really interesting project that I surfaced a number of years ago, and I'm still trying to convince sort of his co-conspirator to sort of release more. A friend of mine was in the process of putting together basically another essential guide, one of the essential guide series about the Grand Army of the Republic. It's going to have everything you could imagine about the clones from every era through every medium. It's really interesting.
Ooh.
And the outline's publicly available and some sketches of some things like that. I wrote something about it, posted something that he gave to me on the website years ago. But I'm trying to convince him to put more out there. James Luceno teamed up with him to make this happen. So James Luceno was working with Lucasfilm and Bell Right Everything to push this through. And then the decanonization happened, and Luceno was basically like, so yeah, like where does this project stand? And they kind of like blew it all off or whatever. And I think among many other reasons left Luceno pretty bitter about the way that they've been handling everything Star Wars related ever since. So no, he is no fan. There is no love lost there. He's the type of person who, if there was ever a Plan B story group, is someone who I think you would easily sort of find.
Chris,
I think
I was actually just going to bring that up.
On.
I was gonna bring something like that up. I was gonna say, if there is new management at Lucasfilm, there's a new CEO, and they don't go through with. It doesn't look like they want to go through with bringing back Legends at all. Is that like on the table at that point?
Oh, like a story group, like an official story group.
Yeah.
Well, an unofficial one. That would be comprised of all
unofficial
authors.
official one. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I've always said, and I think this is an idea that goes way back to when we were starting to get a sense that even pre-2014 that the writing was on the wall. But I think for me, I still think we need a couple of more sort of like public-facing battlefield defeats. I think we need some more absolute certainty that we're never going to see this. But then I think something like that has to be the way to go moving forward, right? And that's when then so all of a sudden I think for instance, my public sort of facing view is about, say, how seriously to take fan fiction relative to the official continue. That's when I think my mentality would shift. Where again, at that point, I'd say, not only would it be foolish to not take other people's ideas to bring this in, right? But in particular, to sort of put together sort of people like that. I think Karpyshyn, Luceno, a couple people like that. Something tells me Sean Stewart would probably be in.
Wow.
Wow, that would be awesome.
And yeah, and then I think I would feel pretty comfortable sort of getting, letting folks like that sort of just be in an advisory council capacity relative to everything, right? And there's a lot of good things I think we've got now that could fold in. The Jedi Prince thing, but only if I'm quoted on the back. I want another.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Jedi Princess with Chris Nelson.
Honestly, something I was thinking about once I finished the ultimate definitive chronology, like Old Republic, prequel era, Dark Times, everything. I was thinking either you or Matt Wilkins, maybe I want one of you to write a little, I don't know, prologue if you have interest. Because I think that would be a fun little thing to do. A forward, something like that. I think that would be fun.
Why not both?
Awesome.
2 forwards, or write it together. That would be awesome.
I think there should be 2. Yes.
Yeah.
Always 2 there.
That's
always
right.
2. That's right. No, what's your favorite Star Wars novel? Why is it Betrayal?
Oh my gosh.
Oops.
Now you ruined it. You should have asked.
It's Invincible. I know that's absolutely true.
It should be Invincible or Apocalypse. Come on.
6 Degrees of Denning with Noah. It's
that's what I asked Matthew Stover to do. I asked him to make a short 100-page novella over those 5-year sojourn that Jason had. So that way, if it's really well written, and I know how much Noah likes Matthew Stover, he'll have to accept the transition because it'll be Matthew Stover that wrote it.
This reminds me. Have you seen like this old forum post where Matthew Stover was like responding to like the Jason stuff, where he said, "Oh, before Fate of the Jedi came out and cemented it, he was thinking, oh, the Jason in Legacy of the Force is legitimately like a doppelganger."
Yeah.
Right.
He didn't believe they actually did this to the character, which I found amazing.
Yeah.
There's apparently a list of authors who actually were very anti-Denning. Anti-Denning verse. They didn't like how things went down with certain characters or storylines.
Let me see if I have them right in my head.
By implication.
I want to hear the authors.
Let me think. I think it was James Luceno.
Yeah.
It was
I have a list.
Timothy. Oh, it was Timothy Zahn. It was Elaine Cunningham.
Yes, she was.
Wait, you said
Elaine Stover.
Did you say Elaine Cunningham was on that list?
Elaine Cunningham was on it.
I have the list. Walter John Williams, Elaine Cunningham, Kathy Tears, Timothy Zahn, and James Luceno were explicitly against it.
Yeah, I remember Cunningham.
Zahn because he wasn't in charge of it.
Yeah.
Because I remember Cunningham.
Implication.
Mm-hmm. Because I remember Cunningham said that she. Yeah, I remember Cunningham said she wasn't happy with the direction at all. Especially, I think she said something about like how she worked to make like Jaina's character work and like the Jack Fell romance.
There's an interview
and how it got thrown out. And then Jason's character, she wasn't a fan of it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting. So it's not a new thing, and it's not just the fans; it's also the authors.
Well, if the EU got continued, though, there's always ways for if the authors were willing to come back. You know, they could try their best because I know that there's that fan fiction Sword of the Jedi. But like, if we had an official source, you know, maybe they dislike it. But the great thing about the EU is whether people like something or don't like something, we count it all. So they could maybe try to fix over what they feel is a mistake with future stories, and maybe merge, you know, fans and authors that disliked.
We get some more ideas.
That's a good way to entice them back. Actually, it's like, well, you get to correct mistakes that you thought were mistakes, especially against Troy Denning.
Without saying it didn't happen, because
without saying it didn't happen.
That way, people who did like it can still have it.
Exactly, because as we know, there are a lot of people who like Legacy of the Force.
Well, also, if the EU gets continued, I know people harp on like, you know, maybe Crucible, you know, was bad, so we shouldn't have any more stories anyway. But like, what about we could flesh out the Dawn of the Jedi era, which barely got anything. So if we got more stories,
that deserves more stories.
Yes,
we could get a lot more stories in that era and flesh that out. Maybe make people like that era.
Which remind me, that's another thing. That's another thing with Dawn of the Jedi. I know Tim Leben has talked about his idea was to make it a trilogy.
Right.
But that's a confusing thing because I don't know if this was an official idea or if it was something he hoped that they would expand it beyond just the one novel. But that would be interesting if we could get, you know, if he has like an outline or where he wanted to go.
Absolutely. It's almost implied in the subtitle, right? That there must be more there because it's like, right? It's I forget what is it? What's it called? It's
Into the Void.
Into the Void.
Into the Void. Yeah, exactly. This is funny. Yeah, Zahn didn't like Dark Empire either, but the hilarious thing is Veach didn't like what Zahn did, so right back at him, right? But it's funny. I heard another, and this is just purely anecdotal, but I heard another thing that I heard through the grapevine, and this is like almost, it defies sort of belief because of everything else Zahn has done publicly post 2014 to sort of tell all of us EU fans just to sort of calm down. But supposedly even Zahn doesn't like the way things have gone. And I think it's not super surprising considering that he's been increasingly public about how he really hasn't been let in on any of the things that involve Thrawn and television shows. So I'm sure he's butthurt about that, right? Real quick, I mean, just going back to something two Star Wars nerds said, and yeah, I mean, it's worth thinking about. I mean, it's like, why would they bring it back, right? At this point, it's like, look, they've got the Essential Legends and stuff to continue sort of a cash stream while it doesn't impact the other thing. And fair enough, right? But this is why I want to know more about what's behind the Essential Legends. Is this something that Del Rey is like using a sort of precious slot holder sort of picks for, or is it a separate project? Is it something Del Rey pushed for? Is it something Lucasfilm's pushing for? I don't really know.
And also something with the Essential Legends is I'm curious to see what's going to happen with it now, because last I've heard, they are stopping doing like brand new
They have no
unabridged
more
audiobooks,
audiobooks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why?
which
Have
means
they-
Those
all
were the
you get
best
now,
parts of it.
all you get now is bigger paperbacks with, in most cases,
Terrible
uglier
covers.
covers.
Yeah.
Just as soon as we get to
And
Yoda
it's
Dark
like-
Rendezvous, there's no audiobook of Yoda Dark Rendezvous now. It sucks.
Yoda.
God.
And the
Noah,
cover is somehow worse.
I was going to ask a
Like,
question.
People used to hate on the PT Photoshop, and now it's
It's back.
Instead of a Photoshop of random scenes in the prequels, now it's Yoda's pose shot in Revenge of the Sith, but just with a weird watery filter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Dawn of the Jedi cover is made by the artist from
Oh,
the
no.
Czech Heir to the Empire cover.
Noah, did you hear if that was
Jack
going to be
Ed
for
the
all
Empire
books
is
going
better.
forward? Because Del Rey on Twitter, they made it sound like as if not all of them are going to get audiobooks, but some of them were.
All they
Oh,
said
I
was-
remember. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember I was on Reddit because there is an editor on there actually who responded.
Yeah.
And he basically said, "Oh, it's not out of the question. We may go back
Right.
to doing audiobooks." My guess would be like it didn't pay off because obviously making audiobooks is a bit more expensive than just
Yeah, it
reprinting
is.
the books. Requires more time and effort and money, and maybe they didn't sell well enough. They probably sold well, because there is enough EU fan base to get them, but not enough to.
I think some like Shadowhunter would have sold really well because people would pay a lot to hear Sam Witwer voice Maul again.
The X-Wing
But
ones were really good too.
Others would not sell nearly as well.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is Lucasfilm obviously did zero marketing for the Essential Legends, right? And I say that as someone who obsessively collects promo materials. There aren't any out there for them, right?
Yeah.
So what's increasingly been the case is that they rely on us. I mean, the six of us here constitute probably 85% of most of Star Wars marketing at this point, right? That they don't do in-house. They let us do it.
Yeah.
Which
I feel like
I should talk about quick. The Essential Legends collection, something like that, would actually lead to what I would think like different markets, different languages. That's a chance for like the German market because most Legends book completely out of print. Here's this new lineup, in English. Okay, let's take this opportunity also republish some of the stuff in our country.
Right.
Nope, nothing. I just thought of that. That would have been an opportunity, but
Actually, that's a very good point. Now, okay, I speak Chinese terribly, but the government makes me learn it as a second language. And I don't really read Chinese books because I really suck at it. If you gave me a 9-year-old kid's book, I wouldn't understand it. But I don't think that there have been new releases. Like, there's that new canon short story thing online by some anonymous guy with a really weird name.
His
Val
Majesty the
Silver-
King.
Yes,
Yeah. That's the one.
Oh, the famous
that's the one.
High
Yeah.
Republic novel.
So, new canon really likes China, right?
Hmm.
They even got the special short story written in Chinese. But I haven't seen any Star Wars books in Chinese. The only one I know about, and actually the only two I know about, are Heir to the Empire, for obvious reasons, and the Darth Bane trilogy, because they use the original cover art for Rule of Two. That's it. I don't know of any other. Not that I've gone out of my way to go find some, but like I don't see these in bookstores. I haven't seen a single Star Wars book in Chinese in a bookstore ever. Not even like for kids or something.
And Stevie mentions that the Essential Legends is bringing new people to the EU continuity, and that's true, and that's great. But it's like the one thing we as EU fans were getting that was something positive and new was we were at least getting unabridged audiobooks of stories, which we have a lot of abridged versions, but who wants to listen to an abridged version of a story? So that was something that was a definite positive outside of just getting re-releases of stories the rest of us already own.
This
So
was
if
like,
we're gonna
this
stop
was like
that,
the
it's
best
like-
of both worlds in a way.
Yeah.
They got
So
like,
but
okay, bringing in new people and also giving the old fans something.
Mhm.
And now
Yes,
that's stopped.
that was a really
But now that's
good
gone.
idea initially.
Chris, you mentioned
Well,
this in your stream with Dylan. So
Yeah.
some of the choices that they've made for these Essential Legends books are very questionable.
Dawn of the Jedi
Yes.
boys.
Give me a break, right? Yeah, no, that's the other thing. All you can do is speculate, right? And again, of course, I've been very mixed about them from the start, but and maybe I've overthought it, but yeah, no, I mean, look, it's great that they're still in the stores. You can walk into any big box store and they're there. There's Legends books. This many years post decanonization, it's actually remarkable that you can still see a Legends book on the shelves, right? Like a current set. That's great. But yeah, I don't know why they're picking what they pick. I wouldn't give anyone. It's like, you think about this in any other context, like, you wouldn't give like, you wouldn't give. I'm just trying to think of a bad example. This is like the worst example I can think of. You wouldn't give like Animalize to introduce someone to like the rock band Kiss. You give them like Destroyer. You don't give them start someone with Into the Void.
Yeah, that's true.
And in particular, you don't do it.
Too.
You don't do it if you don't put an extra sentence, a couple of words strung together from someone that explains specifically why that. There's the boilerplate thing at the beginning that says, well, these are books that in theory inspire the continuing ongoing Star Wars storytelling project. Bullshit, how does Into the Void matter to anything? EU or new canon, right? So
not just that, but why did they start X-Wing and then just stop before Wraith Squadron?
That's something Jeremy talked about. His idea
weird.
is it's just a marketing gimmick.
For the
Because
show,
we're gonna republish the Rogue Squadron books now because we are gonna make a Rogue Squadron movie. Here's a Mace Windu book because I don't know, Sam Jackson.
Mace Windu's going to come back.
Here's the Darth Maul book because Maul is a character that
Sam
we keep on
Witwer
using.
in
Because
voice.
Sam Witwer.
Okay, that one I think was actually a really good idea. That's one
That
of
one
the very
was.
few good ideas they've had.
which one?
That one made sense.
Shadowhunter.
Shadowhunter.
Because people
that
like
one
Darth
really
Maul.
made sense because
Yeah,
people
no.
like Darth Maul, people like Sam Witwer.
So even if they don't know
and
about
I think
the
it's
EU, they
quite
know about that
likely
one.
Witwer pushed for it.
My idea with the selection process, it's like they are taking the most well-known books. Because if you think of like the casuals, there is a zombie novel, I know that. Death Troopers, okay, we're gonna do that. I know there is Heir to the Empire, Darth Bane trilogy. I know, SWOTO is a thing. Okay, let's do the Old Republic books.
Yeah.
I know what a Rogue Squadron is. So I think it's a combination
Oh,
of
that
appealing to the
Clone
casuals.
Commandos and the Bad Batch and Battlefront 2.
Yeah, so I think it's a mixture of appealing to the casual fans and also using it as like, we're gonna make a product that's similar. Like we said, Rogue Squadron movie,
that's true.
Rogue Squadron books.
That might be
Kenobi
it.
book with the terrible cover.
Yeah, because if one of us was doing it, we would be like, okay, Essential Legends novels, Splinter of the Mind's Eye, the Brian Daly trilogy, the Lando trilogy,
Vector Prime.
Vector Prime.
Imagine.
Truce and
But you'd have
Bakura.
to do all 19, right?
I know.
That's the thing, to be
You would
honest.
have
No,
to.
but I mean, to your point, Noah, I mean, think about some of the really iconic, whether you call them essential or good or whatever, just the practicality of not having to, force your hand to publish all 19 of a series. Why not Shadows of the Empire? How has that not been published yet? Just these easy standalone
Where's
ones,
Truce
right?
and Bakura? That's one of the
exactly.
iconic EU
Yeah,
books.
yeah.
It's a standalone.
Where's
it's
the
so
Crystal
good.
Star?
Oh yeah, where's Ra?
They may be doing them based off of what sells more too. Like what
Well,
Legends novels sell the
Well,
most.
the Crystal Star was good enough to get a hardcover release.
Yeah.
So clearly they can do a paperback for. I don't. Is
Mine
there
is
a Dawn
Dawn
of
of
the
the
Jedi hardcover?
But this is
There
the
is.
most.
Oh yeah, I guess there is. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you don't need to speculate. I mean, what they say here is obviously right. They're only going to do the things that have the highest expected return. So that's actually what, in some ways, even makes it even more baffling. I had no idea that Shatterpoint was a strong seller. I mean, that's what was so weird, particularly like as an early thing, right? But clearly they were just trying to, it's a mix of cross-promotional tie-in. Like this stuff is supporting the rest of the brand. But again, Into the Void is a little odd. That seems to me to be, I think they're shifting to a sort of like, what are things that sort of just, to your point now, to a casual person's perspective is like, this is the first book chronologically in this old continuity. I guess that makes sense, right? Maybe that means they'll do Crucible too as bookends or something. But
Fatal Alliance is also really weird.
Yeah.
Like you have every other Drew book there, and then you pick Fatal Alliance instead of Annihilation.
I think that's the thing where they're like, okay, we're gonna do the Revan book, obviously because it's a Revan, that's gonna sell.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But then they are like, But then they are like, oh, but that's technically part of this overarching series, and it would look weird if you only publish one. Let's
That's
bring
what
the
the
rest
season
out.
Then they
is
don't
too.
care about X-Wing. They don't finish X-Wing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just leave X-Wing hanging with
They're
back.
and they gave it the extra this brand new sub title too. It's like the rebranding stuff, right? So I just love, like, in the course of about 2 years, we went from everyone finally at, sort of internalized, okay, I guess this is called Legends now, but now there's Essential Legends collection on Disney Plus. There's the Vintage collection. Now
Epic
there's all
collections.
the Epic. It's but the thing is, yeah, it's like, obviously the name Essential implies it's not comprehensive, but the thing is, like, that's so problematic because, again, they're not going to do all of NJO, but they need to make it to
Yeah.
truly be intellectually honest.
Exactly.
But
if they don't do all New Jedi Order, how will they get the Legacy of the Force, Fate of the Jedi?
Yeah,
That never.
right.
That's never happening.
Never.
the problem,
Yeah,
I mean,
never.
and this has been the problem from day one, is that, great, it's cool that for right now, short term, like, someone can go in and buy whatever, Hard Contact or whatever the Clone War novels they publish or something, but it's like in a Target or something in the United States. But it's like 10 years from now, that's what some kid's going to think is, constitutes the whole of this continuity, right? And they're going to be as baffled as we were all reading Into the Void for the first time pre-2014. But it's like, that's the thing. Increasingly, this is going to become what people think because it says Essential, right? So
Yeah, that's true.
in the same way too, like someone pointed out recently, it's like, again, like on Disney Plus, like the Vintage collection, right? It makes it sound like these shows are from the 1800s. Clone Wars, the micro series Clone. I mean, this is the amazing thing. It ends in 2005. And guess what else happens in 2005? The pre-production for the Filoni Clone Wars. So it's like, come on, so, but
Yeah.
the way that branding's powerful, so.
Actually,
Chris,
on
I have
the
a question
subject of
for
the
you.
Filoni and the Tartar, Marshall, you go first.
Yeah, I have a question for Chris. On this whole notion of Essential Legends, what's your take on the fact that they won't reproduce any of the or reprint any of the young reader novels, like Young Jedi?
Right.
Yeah.
That would be so
Or Dark
useful.
Forces.
Even Stackpole has said on Twitter, like and Kevin J. Anderson, they had like a little Twitter thread going that they're saying like they're leaving money on the table. I know you've said that before, Chris, yourself, but I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on that?
Those are so expensive to get now. That'd be so great.
No, it's a great question. The only thing I can speculate about is whether they just don't have the rights, or whether it's a complicated licensing
Scholastic,
structure.
maybe.
But that's also
the
weird because I'm
jukebox and
pretty
stuff.
sure they have the YA books as like ebooks.
They
I
have
think.
that. I know because I've started off buying everything on Kindle. We have the Jedi Quest series on Kindle. We have the Young Boba Fett series, and we have the Last of the Jedi and Rebel Force. The Young
those
Jedi Knights,
also
Junior
were
Jedi Knights,
reprinted
and
with
Jedi
Legends
Apprentice are not on Kindle or anywhere else.
Okay,
digitally.
Jedi
Wanna know what's
Apprentice
weird,
is
Alex?
very weird because I've seen Jedi Apprentice with the Legends banner in hard copy, but
Really?
I've never seen Young Jedi Knights or Junior Jedi Knights anywhere except the original releases.
You want to know what's weird? The Jedi Quest books on iTunes have unabridged audiobooks.
What?
Yeah,
I
they
did not know
do.
that.
I've seen them. It's weird. I almost bought one.
Unfortunately, I can't buy any books on iTunes here. Apple is very stupid. It doesn't give me access to books or TV shows.
Oh,
Well,
I
great.
don't know why.
At least when it comes to audiobook wise, we've got YJK audiobooks, that YouTube channel.
Yep.
Yep.
They're
Yeah.
awesome.
And by the way,
That was
and
really
technically, at least every adult Star Wars novel has an unabridged version. But it's just not
Oh, yeah,
commercially
the-
available, which is really
Right.
interesting, right? So,
For the hearing impaired, right?
yep, that's right.
Yes, exactly.
But that's what, I just have to think at some point it just comes down to complicated licensing structures. Now, again, somehow the Bantam license moves to Del Rey, right? Somehow Del Rey is able to republish Bantam books, and somehow that worked. But I just, maybe it's just complicated, and that's the thing that bugs me, that that guy Star Wars Timeline, who keeps putting those petitions out, right, about getting them. It's like someone just needs to go to Copyright Clearance Center, which is a website, and figure this out. I've never done the work. Someone needs to do that before we speculate any further, just to figure out who actually owns it.
It's similar with that with comics, because you have all of those things that I believe were
Marvel's
published.
reprinting everything.
It's the Adventures, Star Wars Adventures, and the TCW tie-in comic books. So far in Epic Collection, they're not reprinting those, and it's really weird.
Yeah.
So are they going to do like an omnibus that's like a mini version that's going to comprise all that. I don't think they are, but it'd be cool if they
I
did.
don't think they are. I think they probably want every. Well, okay, nah, that's probably not true.
Yeah, but besides the YA stuff, I mean, maybe there is a reason behind it. What I don't, I mean, I kind of understand they also don't reprint the Dark Forces trilogy, and that's special
Yeah.
because that's like
Owned
regular
by Dark
novels.
Horse.
But yeah, but published by Dark
So
Horse, which I
clearly
assume
something's
is the
going
problem.
on. I'm assuming it is something to do with the contract with Dark Horse because we haven't seen any such thing from Dark Horse except the comics.
It's funny though, yeah. I mean, the fact that it's a Dark Horse thing might in like the very sort of binary thinking of like, say, Del Rey or a book published, it might be classified as a comic, right? And this is so interesting. When Dylan and I talked to Dave Dorman about Lightsider years ago, he got fired up, and Dylan will remember. He said, I'm going to go talk to the powers that be about maybe seeing if we can actually make this thing happen. But the interesting was, it wasn't about going to Del Rey. He said, I'm going to go talk to Marvel. So in his mind, it was comic effectively. It was a graphic novel, right?
Right.
Interesting, right? So
On a related subject, Alex, we need an update, please.
What?
Lightsider.
Oh,
the
Lights.
editor.
Right.
We need an update.
I don't have one at the moment. I plan on doing an interview at some point, but I just haven't had the time to do so. Also, my internet sucks, so it'd have to be at a time like this where it's actually being decent.
Right,
So-
because
Ooh.
in case someone doesn't know, Alex, for some reason, somehow, in the biggest twist of 2023 so far, got in contact with the co-author of Empire's End. He just suddenly showed up under Alex's Lightsider review.
In the
Yeah.
comments, yeah.
Yeah, and they got
not
into
just
contact.
Not just that, but I checked the guy's channel, and he has a bunch of playlists. And if you look at his Star Wars playlist, they only have 3 things there, and Alex's review of Lightsiders.
What are the other two?
I
Matt
can't
Wilkins?
remember. I think one was an audio drama or something.
Okay.
And I really can't remember the first one.
Wait,
you
is
have
this-
to double check.
is this for real? I never
I'm
heard
This
that.
is real.
I'm almost
What?
positive. I've
This is
talked to
real.
him. I think he's legit. So
Wow,
Yeah.
I had no idea.
He even talked about with Alex, he would be ready to help out with the Lightsider audiobook.
yeah, the
Thing-
audio drama that we're
the
making.
audio drama that we're doing.
Yeah.
Mm,
He said he really did consult on it. So
that one will be interesting. But for those who are curious about the update, I'm waiting for Matu to do a few outlines with a few small modifications. I think that there are an extra 2 scenes that he's adding for clarity. Yeah. So I'm just waiting to see his outline. And then we'll get to work with fiddling with the script. But I've already put the whole... I've basically turned the novella into a script in terms of format and stuff.
But this may be the beginning of Plan B in a way, because if this is for real, and this turns out good, like, holy shit! And this came out
I
of
think-
nowhere.
Yeah.
It's not like, Joe was talking with one of the other authors from back then, and he was like suddenly ready to help us out as a fandom. No, the fucking
literally
co-author of
popped out of
Empire's End
nowhere.
shows up on YouTube on Alex of all places on Alex channel.
I know why me.
Ouch, that's hurtful.
Yeah.
Why not?
I think it's just
Why
because I'm
not
one of the few English reviews of Lightsider out there right now.
Which
'Cause I know
makes
you
me
did
mad
one,
because
Noah.
I reviewed it first on my
Well, you
channel,
should have
but I
done it in
didn't.
German.
Yeah, no,
That's
I
your
talked
fault.
about it in
But
English.
Oh, you
the channel's
did?
in German.
Yeah,
The
I talked about it
channel's
in
German.
Oh, you did.
but I didn't put Lightsider in the title. If I did
Oh.
that, he may have talked me out. I'm
Ooh.
jealous.
Oh.
No, have you ever considered that? Like, I think you're the reason why everyone has Lightsider now. In the sense, I think your video kind of pushed the schedule up, don't you?
Well,
I think everyone
actually
owes Noah
think
Maybe.
so, yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah.
and
It
it's
is
also
Noah.
interesting because I gave people the manuscript, the
He leaked it
1997
early.
version, and
Hmm.
what Joe released was the 2008 version.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
did?
already
Oh.
interesting.
That's right. No, exactly. When he put his out, I go, oh, okay, yeah, no big deal. And then people was like, I finally checked it out. Like, it was really late in the game, and I was like, this is totally different than what I've got, because I always had the 97. So,
Oh no. I need to go
so
check the script doc now. I think
well,
I
the
used his.
yeah, the amazing group of people that do all that custom design work to put together all of the fan prints and stuff like that. I think they've now released this really,
they
really,
released,
really
like,
cool
12 versions of it.
exactly, a really cool compendium, along with all interviews about the project from all the contributors and stuff.
And
It's a really, really
yeah, and what's especially cool about it, I was looking at it, they have the 2008 edited version, like first, like that's the big thing, then the interviews, and then at the end, the 1997 manuscript.
Oh, by the way,
I find it
they
fascinating.
did a custom Bantam cover, and Noah's quoted on the back of it, and so was
Yeah, me and Giovanni are quoted on the
so-
back cover. That's amazing.
yeah.
so
so,
from the
yeah,
emails
so
that I
Granny
have
Toes,
with
yeah.
him, from the
Just real
emails I
quick,
have
the Lulu PDF, it has both Granny Toes. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's got both.
Actually, I really think that Noah actually pushed up the schedule, because it was really interesting to be on Noah's server that day, because we'd all heard about Joe's big thing for Halloween.
Yeah.
And then we were all like, it's Lightsider. We know it's Lightsider. Come on. We can let the cat out of the bag now, right? Right? And then we just got Galaxy of Fear PDFs, the first update of the day, and then it... So, but then Noah released his video, and then a few hours later, I think it was like 6 or 8 hours later, suddenly this document just magically appeared.
Was
And
that on the
it
same
felt-
day? I don't remember.
I don't
was the
remember
same-
that was on the same day. I don't think so.
I think it was the same day, but due to time zones, it might have felt different for you, Noah.
Hmm.
I could check the history now that I'm in Joe's server, but it was close-ish, and it was really surprising because no one expected him to suddenly release Lightsider, and we thought that his big thing was going to be Galaxy of Fear.
Hey, which
Yeah.
is
A
great.
disappointing big thing. It
I
was
was happy
great, but we had hoped for Lightsider, just because then we could tell people that we'd had it the whole time.
It's funny, the guys involved in putting together the Lulu version wanted me to be involved in sort of writing kind of like a personal history of sort of like my connection to having the 97 manuscript. And I was intrigued by it, but I didn't I still haven't revealed sources, didn't want to kind of go there. But to me, the more interesting thing almost is the fourth quarter 2022 sort of lead up to it coming out, right? I mean, so Noah, you're a part of that, right? Obviously, Joe, the rumors all year that we were going to be finally getting it, right, from someone, presumably Joe. But remember, right before Noah, you put it out, there was that whole Reddit thing, the fake thing about how someone downloaded Goodwill. That was,
And we theorized that was Matt Wilkins with like a troll account.
No. I found no. You didn't theorize it. I actually checked Matt's article, and then I saw the photo, and I matched it. It was the same photo.
I mean, that just means somebody took it off the Expanding Universe website.
Yeah, they literally took Matt's photo and
What's also weird,
they
the
found it in the
account.
bookstore.
But what's also weird, the account was created in 2012. And that was like the only thing this person has ever posted.
Yeah, and even worse, in their responses, they basically covered every question people would have before they asked questions.
And then the guy
That was
said like,
fun.
oh, I didn't buy this one, Lightsider, here's the picture, but I bought these cool books, and then he showed like Disney canon novels.
Disney canon books.
Okay, but
And
it
I
was
think-
really funny because while we were busy putting the evidence back and forth, a lot of people used, but we wouldn't have picked these novels as evidence because there's so much better stuff you can use to troll EU fans with.
But what I think it has to be like Joe or Matt or someone else close to them, and it was done as like a promotion, so to speak.
That's an interesting idea. I never thought of that.
I mean, I think
secretly
it would be a
Chris
cool
this whole
idea.
time. Just Chris this whole time. It's always
You never
Chris.
know. You'll never
It was
know.
Dave Dorman the whole time.
We'll never know how Noah got his copy, right? But,
If it's something mysterious, it was Chris Nelson. That's always the case.
yeah.
But
no, it
so
was. I think it was more than. Okay, it felt like more than 2 days. It felt like more than 2 days.
that's
Matt
true.
doesn't know to use Reddit.
He gave
I was
up on Sword of the
thinking that, but I
Jedi
didn't
because he
say it.
couldn't read it online.
I was doing that whole fiasco while in school. So I think I used my phone in school more that day than any other day the whole year. So I was basically texting under my table the whole time.
Oh my god,
So,
guys, Matt Wilkins in the
this
chat.
is it. Oh, he's back?
The mad response was right there in the street with you, gentlemen.
They mean
There you go.
Marcel. Marcel was outside the jurisdiction of the United
Oh,
States intellectual property right laws.
That's right.
But with
Hey Matt, I know you're busy, but you got to get on Discord, dude.
no, he,
Crazy
he
combos
doesn't.
going on there.
He will never do it. He's too.
He'll never
he's
do
too
it.
He doesn't know how to
small.
work
Tons of
Discord.
He
Tons of
doesn't want
people have asked
to.
me.
Matt, he curses those damn kids with their stupid Discords.
He does. Get off my lawn.
I go in and out of Discord from time to time, and I got to be honest. I'm totally embarrassed to admit, but I think I'm too old for Discord. Like, there's something about it technologically that just doesn't work with my computer interface.
But Instagram's okay for you.
You're on. Yeah, I was about to say you're on Instagram.
You know what though? I don't get. Can I be totally honest? I'm so embarrassed to admit. I don't even know how to like reply to a specific comment. Like, that's how old I am. Like, I'm. Yeah, if people ask my age, I'm going to say I'm don't know how to use Instagram. That's my age, right? But so.
Dylan here with the great ideas.
That's a great idea. That would be really neat. That'll be a supplement to our history of the fandom video. Just the saga of Lightsider.
But with Lightsider, the guy that commented, his name is Mike Bildler. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but he sent me his Facebook and stuff to kind of like confirm, and like it seems really legit. And what he's responsible for is in 1995 Empire's End 2 script. He also helped with Lightsider, it says, and John Whitman's Galaxy of Fear with plot and character development.
He owns one of the 4 original Lightsider manuscripts.
Yeah, he also helped one of the interviews that they have in the Lightsider collection. So
it also says he helped AC Crispin with Rebel Dawn with certain character development. Daniel Wallace's The Essential Guide to Planets and Moons. He was with the early project development.
I love that book, by the way. It's like one of my favorite EU source books.
So it seems pretty legit.
Impressive.
Yeah, is he the source of the information, right? About like how there was only 5, right? There was someone in those interviews who's always been super insistent that there were 5. In fact, I remember when it might have been the Reddit leak or even things before then, right? As things about this have come out over the years, there was always someone who would jump on to say, "You're completely lying because we know for a fact there's only 5, right?" And that might be true. There might be 5 original, but clearly it got out there. I mean, again, I have it, right, in some sense, you know. So it's like, but it's still this amazingly well kept secret. It's almost hard to believe that it lasted that long.
Yeah, and then you look at Matt Wilkins, the absolute madman, and I went back and checked after it was like public news. Everything came out. I checked his first expanded universe videos. This insane person called Matt Wilkins had Lightsider on his shelf for like 10 years in the background. And that was like the
I went
biggest
back
troll.
to check almost every video. Basically, as long as you can see that spot on the shelf, it's there.
There's that video Noah put out.
Oh yes,
Noah put out when Lightsider was finally released. Noah, you put out that video where it has the X-Files theme and has like Matt and Chris and Dagu and stuff like that. Lightsider.
Well, I think everyone thinks that like either I got it from Matt or we got it from the same place or something, right? We didn't. The funny thing is, I still don't think I know how Matt got his. I remember the first time I had a conversation with Matt about Lightsider. It was one of those weird things where it was like, again, I've been sworn to secrecy about its sources, and I've never revealed sources. And so when talking with others, I've always kind of had to dance around it a bit, right? And I remember we were talking on the phone one night, sort of about it, and then he said, "Hey," I'll never forget. He goes, "Hey, you know that one area of the shelf that looks white? You know, it's because I've got it flipped around." I couldn't believe it. So yeah. and ever since then, every video that was like the first thing I'd focus on. Right? It was just so great. Love going back. It's the best Easter egg. It's the long
Number
troll,
one.
Matt. It's genius. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see what's coming out next. Well, I'm going to jump off in just a bit. I started this, and as Alex reminded once or twice, I was just going to run down a list of channels that I like. I'm going to forget people, so help me supplement. I'm going to run down my list. Here are the channels that are like featured on my channel. Okay, so Matt Wilkins, Quality Autism, and in this order, by the way, but there's nothing to the order, so don't get too. Matt Wilkins, Quality Autism, Spencer Star Wars Library, Stupid Chainsaw Productions, Jeremy, Alex, Quinlan Voss, Lance, Marcel, Only Good Games, Scott Johnson, who's got a channel. He's got a couple of funny videos up. I hope he does more. Son of Luke, who's great, who's Ryan, who also has like a really big Facebook page, Continue Star Wars. Is it Continue the Star Wars Legends Universe? But Son of Luke is really great. He's doing sort of like a month-to-month thing, like version of what
he does
Dylan
an
and I did,
update
right?
thing.
I love it.
Those are great.
Callum, I have Holocron Keeper Evan there, even though he's been kind of mean to me lately. But two Star Wars nerds, Stevie B, GFFA Games, which is really great. They're cataloging, basically. They're trying to capture all of these like increasingly lost old Star Wars games. Meg Reviews, Legends Library, Legends Literature, Eckhart's Ladder, Nathan Butler, Red 5 Reviews, and the Geeks Attic. So who am I missing?
Maybe YJK audiobooks might be good to put on
Oh,
there.
yes.
Right,
okay.
yeah.
Oh yeah, you should put
That's a
that
great
up.
one. Yep.
Also, thank you for having me on there. I'm honored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you say Josh Adams? Because he's doing the Commando audiobooks right now, and he's about to
Okay.
start a Patreon.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Like the audiobooks of those, right?
Yeah. They're like Del Rey level audiobooks. He adds in sound effects and noises and music. It's really good.
Matt who also does some Star Wars lore videos. Oh, and Tad
Matt
Larkin,
too.
Mandalore.
Yeah, so of course Mandalore, but he's like really well known.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
He's really
I
well
was-
known.
he's more well known than Christopher and Matt because he's got thousands of subs.
He's got a big following. Unfortunately, he's always been a real douche to me. But I have to
That's-
say, and
yeah.
Alex, you and I talked about this. But what I really appreciate, and largely comes down to my views about the Clone Wars, because he is so strident.
Yeah.
And apparently, I'm, compared to him, more nuanced, right? Which is ironic, because in any other circle, I look like some complete ideological asshole who's out to sort of like,
No.
I got to get out on Filoni or something. But I think based on that interview he did a couple of months ago with OG Star Wars, he really chilled out. And so I think because he's got great content, there's no question. But he was just really aggressive about the Clone Wars stuff for a while.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, spreading
good
lies.
suggestion.
I said it.
Yeah,
I don't care.
And Granny Toes, you're going to get something started soon. So definitely let us know when that
Oh
gets.
yeah.
gets ripping.
Yes,
And,
I'm waiting for it.
Granny, I want to talk to you
You've been
about something.
teasing me for months about that.
I want to talk to you about something later.
no, Matt's the first channel I mentioned. Come on.
Yeah, Matt
Don't
and
get me in trouble.
Christopher are part of the Holy Trinity. Who's the third? I don't know. Maybe Dylan, but he doesn't make content, so he just shows up on other people's channels.
His piss couch is the first.
I wish Dylan would get started. And actually, Brian Borg's got a channel. I should put him too. I mean, he hasn't done
Brian
stuff
Borg.
in a long time. But he put videos up a while ago, and of course, like does the Twin Sons has a YouTube too. They do a lot of like the Sword Tour.
The Jedi Praxium has a YouTube channel, but they haven't used it in so long.
What's the latest with the Praxium Grey Home? What do you know about that? Both in terms of just everything that they do, including the conventions, everything else.
Well, okay, I'm not on the board. Granny would know a lot more than me, I think. But my understanding is it's still going on. It may eventually do a thing together with Legends Con, but they're not sure. And I know that Legends Con used to be part of the Praxium.
Yeah, kind of a splinter, right?
It's splintered off. I don't know much about it. Just that the team's a lot smaller now, but I think it's still going ahead.
I also want to mention, because he's been in the comments for the whole stream, Stevie B has been interviewing like a bunch of us, just asking us questions about how we got into the EU and stuff, and us as fans. And he makes his own original content, but that's primarily what he's been doing recently, and it's been really great. So definitely check Stevie B out as well. He plans on interviewing Christopher at some point when he's not dealing with his children. So that will be sometime in the future.
That'll be
Um,
in a while.
But,
Chris, I got a question real quick.
Yeah.
You gonna interview Joseph Bongiorno when his thing comes out, Supernatural Encounters?
Oh, I never thought about that. Yeah, I hope so. And maybe Matt too. Matt, by the way, for people who don't remember, Matt did an interview with Joe a couple of years ago now. Actually, that's worth checking out on Matt's channel. Matt can correct me. I think it was like December 2019, something like that.
Wait a minute, Chris. I just realized something.
What?
So you have a mutual. Sorry to stop you, but you have a mutual with James Lucino, right?
Yep.
Dog, get him on your channel. Interview James Lucino.
that would be pretty great.
I can't think of anyone better.
It's a golden opportunity.
Yeah, you can ask them like all these dirty little
I cannot
secrets.
think of a better person to interview James Lucino.
He's been the most tight-lipped in the past however many years.
Yeah.
And the way you go about everything, Chris, like you're very good at
Yes.
asking questions that aren't gonna upset.
I
anyone.
think you would be the best person
yeah.
to interview James
Because
Lucino.
Matt's just gonna be like, Matt.
That's not a bad idea. I hadn't thought about that, but I would like to talk. I talked with Joe. I mean, actually, in fact, it's funny. Right before I talked to Joe, but I never thought. I'm embarrassed to say I've never thought about having him on. And by the way, this gets to something that's kind of weird. Like I've never thought of myself as a YouTuber, right? I've done lots of other things for Star Wars and other sorts of mediums, but anyway. And I'm about to not be a YouTuber for a while in any event. But Slav, good point.
I would say, Chris, what you should do is that if you're going to approach him with it, just have it recorded ahead of time. Make sure it's recorded, so that if he asks,
I'm just playing.
well, and because you can always say to him, if you always want me to edit out something because you didn't want to say that in hindsight, I can always do that.
Yeah, yeah. I thought about doing that years ago with who's the guy who wrote the first trilogy in the new canon? What's his? Why can't I check?
Chuck Wendig.
I thought about doing that and just being like interview him, like even for the website or something, but be like, I will give you a complete editorial review of it. Like, take out what you don't want, right? But I think but he's irrelevant now anyway. I don't know. I mean, he got canceled.
I think he got fired, right? Then canceled.
It's interesting. He got pulled off of some things, but I noticed very conspicuously the one of the main Star Wars editors at Del Rey still interacts with them publicly on Twitter. They're always going back and forth and stuff. So that's the optics of that are interesting, right? So it seems like it got pulled off of certain things, but not others. I don't know how to make sense of that.
It's very strange how Lucasfilm and how post 2014 Lucasfilm has been going about doing customer relations and stuff. Like, I think a while ago on Twitter, the official Star Wars account called people racist or misogynist or something. And then said, go cry about this or that. Which I was shocked to see from an official account.
Yeah, there was someone very aggressive on that account at the time.
Yeah. And then there are a few authors who do stuff for the High Republic, I think, like Justina Ireland and a few other people, who say all sorts of stuff, and yet they have not been cancelled the same way Wendig has. They're still writing for Lucasfilm and all that, going on panels, showing up at celebrations, so on and so forth. It's just interesting to see the difference.
I also just remembered another YouTuber. He kind of just started. He doesn't have that many subscribers, and he only has like 1 or 2 videos. But it's Quinlan Voss's friend named Liam, and he's starting to review the expanded universe. Though he unfortunately started with Dawn of the Jedi, but he's still excited to keep reading through. Which props to him. But
Alex, it's an essential Legends novel. Okay,
exactly.
Yeah.
Disney
Oh, wait,
told me so.
I just thought of a few more YouTubers.
Liam C. Spider, he's getting into it, and it's always, when you've read everything, it's like you've already experienced it, so it's never going to be the same. But it's always fun to see somebody who has never read them express their thoughts. So definitely a guy to check out as well.
Yeah, he is the youngest EU fan online
He is so far.
that I know of. So, he's 15.
Titus is also around.
Oh, Titus as well.
Yeah, we forgot Titus.
Know of him. Know of Titus. It's funny with Quinlan. Not to. I hope this doesn't like embarrass you, but it's really funny, Quinlan. When you kind of came on the scene a couple of years ago, you would comment on my stuff, and it was really great to
Right.
get to know you. I feel like you kind of disappeared for a little while, and when you came back, not only did you kind of do the face reveal, but when you kind of first started, you were a little younger, and you had a younger voice, and you came back, and you're like, "I'm Quinlan Boss, motherfucker. I'm here to talk about the EU." It was so great, It's like it's great to see that change, So it's been fun to watch that arc, but
He went to go train in the Fortress of Solitude, and then
yeah, exactly. Now he can fly, right?
And now me and
Finally,
him are making, I'll say, slight spoilers, but I'll say me and Quinlan are, because I don't know how to write, so I was never going to do that for the website, the Expanded Universe, but we are working on a video series for the Expanded Universe website. It will be coming out in April, and it's going to be a weekly series like Matt Chat. I'll say that much.
Yeah, and you've shared some with me. They've been really great. Quinlan has shared the long list of potential topics. It should be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to
really
watching
excited
that.
about it.
Real quick, I just want to point this out, Matt. This is hilarious. This is something of an inside joke between us. He wanted to interview Flint, but he had already read Heart of the Jedi. This goes back to, you guys might remember, the person who boasted about being the first person to interview Flint after the Amazon excitement. In the middle of the interview, stopped to say, "I actually haven't finished your book yet." So that's kind of a funny inside joke with that. So it's a good tip, guys. Like if I ever get Lucino on the channel, trust me, I will make sure to finally finish Cloak of Deception. Okay?
Do a Lucino marathon before you bring him on.
Yeah, exactly.
Just read every single thing and then write notes, so that you have a long list of lore questions to just hit him with. I'm sure he'll be delighted to sit there for 5 hours.
I want to know,
talk lore.
I want to know all the dirt that Lucino has on people. He's just old now. He's not working on anything, so he's just going to be like, he's just going to be like honest about everybody. Oh yeah, the author's a dick. Oh yeah, that dude's not cool. But she's
like
cool.
Ellen Dean Foster, he just doesn't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Did you guys see the comment L. Neil Smith made in the interview? He went after Disney so hard. It was glorious.
L. Neil Smith, underrated legend, rest in peace.
Absolutely.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yep. And Lucino, by the way, is so great too, because again, he's been around so long because he was close friends with Brian Daly. So he must have an encyclopedia of insider knowledge.
He's been there the whole way.
Well,
man's
guys,
a legend.
Let's end on Lucino. Is great. We want to hear more from him. Where's he been? But also, L. Neil Smith, rest in peace. Absolute.
We need to end it with Christopher is the best. This is your stream.
It ends with Matt Wilkins' comment.
It ends with this.
Matt,
okay, guys. After this, we'll talk about
Dagu?
I will send Dagu, Mandorla, everything to you guys after I end the stream. Crimson Empire 5. It's all there.